Yeah.
All right, let's do this. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
You
Let's
ready?
go. Oh, I'm ready. Let's
Three,
go.
2, 1. Welcome to part 2 of the Grinning Goats card review Boomsday edition, where we review all the neutral cards in buckets 3, 4, and 5. Because we
Yep.
started with the plan to do 1, 2, and 3, and then like 1 took like 20 minutes. So
We got through 2 cards in 30 minutes, and if you
yeah.
extrapolate that, we're gonna be done real soon.
All right, this is Adwicta.
This is Merps.
Let's keep going. We talked
Bucket
about
3.
this already. If you want to hear more about it, go listen to the first video, which you should have listened to anyway because it's like the most important video. This is Giggling Inventor time. Giggling Inventor is in the third bucket, and we don't know why, but you should take it every single time. As you can see, it is a 165, and the rest of this bucket is really freaking low. Even the rest of this bucket up here is low compared to this. Even the bucket above it is low compared to this. So it's Giggling Inventor. Let's take it. If you're wondering what Giggling Inventor is or why it's good, it is a 5 mana, 2/1, plus 1/2 Divine Shield Taunt, plus 1/2 Divine Shield Taunt. And that sounds like a mouthful. It's because it's a board full, and it will make sure you never die, and it will deal the appropriate amount of damage for the 5-drop. And it will do all of that. And it will not be able to be cleared by a board clear, and it will not be able to be cleared by a hard removal, and it will take 10 mana to clear from like a cheap shot or something like that. Like it will take 6 mana to clear from a the warrior clear, the multiple whirlwind one. Warpath, yeah. And I don't know how else do you clear it. Someone suggested the Mossy Horror. Yes, that's it. You got it. You got to do Mossy Horror, or you're kind of screwed. And it's a 1-card card. It's not doesn't need to combo with anything, but it does give you 2 mechs that not only have taunt but also Divine Shield, so you can combo with it. I don't know. I don't know what else there is to like say about this. And we've said this before. We told Blizzard, we like knocked on their door and we said, hey, please bucket this in the first bucket for the good of the arena. And they're like, no, we'll do that after the first week. They didn't really say that. They just kind of said no.
So for now, this is going to be something that we heavily advise. If you've been watching for this long, we've stated it before, but if you're just tuning in, take
2 of these. Take 3 of these. It doesn't matter. Just keep taking these. However many Blizzard decides to offer you, and it won't be that much because it's like a neutral card that's a minion, and there's no like bonus for new sets anymore. But like, take it.
Yeah, no, this is extremely good. It should not be in the third bucket. So this is one of those cards in which you look at it, and I think if you play the arena, you should see it as like, wow, this is really good. This is where you can extract serious value here because it should be in the first bucket, but it's in the third bucket. Take the card.
Take the card and giggle. That's what it's there for. Because you're like, I don't know, cheating out a ton of value and winning the game until your opponent does the same thing, you know, because it's a really good card and they'll take it too. And then you're kind of like on an even playing ground where you're all just kind of like looking at the board and you have like a million things and it's all damage. And then you're a warrior and you giggle more because you have like a battle rage and you're like, this card used to be good. Now it's draw 5 cards for 2 mana. And you know, life is good for that particular synergy. But
only
yeah,
for that, yes.
Like really, it's a silly card. They should never print it in the arena, and they should definitely not misbucket it. But they did. So for 1 week, this is the arena. Just got to accept it. Yeah. I don't know why. I've heard some people are like not too high on this card, like good arena players, but they're wrong. I'm 100% sure about this. And you can hold us to all these. This is public record. All right. Next card in the bucket is a Mecharoo, which is a Argent Squire for mechs. The Argent Squire, it's a 1-mana 1/1 with a Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 mech. And it's like a double mech. And if you're wondering where Argent Squire is, it's in the 7th. Oh, sorry. It's in the 6th bucket. This one is in the 3rd bucket. So Blizzard obviously recognizes that for the pure upside of this being a mech and being able to combo really well with magnetic stuff and other stuff, makes it a really good card. And we agree. We think Blizzard got this bucket pretty much like on the dot. Like, this is how good the mech synergies are generally for this set in this meta. You're going to be able to extract about third bucket value out of this card. And to be fair, we also think they misbucketed Squire, and Squire should be higher. But it's gonna be a very good combo starter and for your mech train. And of course, if you have no magnetic cards, it's gonna be a little lower value. It's a 1-mana card. A lot of its value is tied into this whole mech.
Yep. So once again, when we talk about these cards, don't really think about score so much. Remember what we say when we tell you it's like Giggly Inventor is under bucketed, so take it. Mecharoo is properly bucketed, so just do whatever you want with it. Right?
Evaluate your
that's
deck.
what you should focus on. Yeah.
Maybe you take a Mecharoo, maybe you take a Bone Drake, right? Like, who knows? Okay, next card, and it is an epic card, and it is your favorite card of the entire set. It is called a Weaponized Pinata, 4-mana, 4/3 mech. Death Rattle, add a random legendary minion to your hand. Merps, take it away.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, look, the score is at 121, so we think it's properly bucketed for here. Like Blizzard didn't do anything crazy with this. But what they did do crazy is the design of this card, okay?
Because it's so pretty and rainbowy and has like rocket launchers and flamethrowers and like thrusters.
This is exactly the kind of card in which I'm just like, why do you do this? It is, the stats are fine. They properly bucketed it even. People are going to take it because it's a good card, and it's just going to wildly swing games one way or the other, right? Your Weaponized Pinata versus their Weaponized Pinata, or one game, you get the Nat Pagel. The other game, you get Sunkeeper Tarim, and it's just, this is one of those cards in which, like, there's an RNG effect, but that effect is unpredictable. Like, the person across from the pinata cannot predict it, right? Like, they have no idea what it is until it's played. And it could be a really crummy small legendary, which has no effect really, or it could be a game-changing one like Tarim, Tyrion, Deathwing, et cetera, et cetera. So it just goes to a design that I really, really do not like. And there's not you're not punished for taking this at all. You should take it. It's a decent card. You're gonna see a lot of these in the arena, and yeah, that's it. Games will be decided by this.
All right, I'm gonna come up with a different perspective, which is that it's gonna be a lot of fun. And you know what this expansion lacks? I'm being completely serious when I say this when it comes to the arena.
I mean, yeah,
this expansion lacks RNG. It is one of the least RNG expansions we have ever received. That's weird for a like Boomsday, fun everywhere, huge combos kind of expansion. It's actually like, it's a very combo-y expansion, so the swings are definitely there. But the actual RNG, where the word random is in the card, is very low. So
right.
If there's an expansion to put this card
to what
in,
we're used to now, right? Because I see a lot of people, they're like, wait, there is RNG. Yes, there definitely is RNG. But the level of RNG that you're going to see in the arena is going to be a lot less than what other expansions have brought upon.
And remember, we were talking about patch 12.0. That reduced RNG even further by getting rid of all the powerful spells. Like, I mean, not getting rid of them, but like having their offering rate. Like, and they even moved them to MCT up, and MCT is going to be heavily diluted. Like, RNG in the arena is going to be at maybe an all-time low. This is fine. Like, as a card designer, I don't like it or anything, but like, it's Blizzard, it's Hearthstone, they're gonna make cards like this. This is the proper place for it. Alright. Let's go to the fourth bucket. And here's where you're gonna see a theme of, like, don't take this card. This is probably the bucket that is the most over-bucketed in general. And we're going to start with the one card that breaks that rule. And it is a Replicating Menace. I love this card. I love the design of this card. I love what the card does. And yes, that is not a mistake. We did rate it a 133. A 133 is really, really high. A 133 is where Firefly is on average. It is better than an Egg Napper, which is what it's most similar to. And Egg Nappers are pretty good. Let me tell you what a Replicating Menace is. It's a 4-mana, 3/1 mech. With Death Rattle, summon 3/1/1 Microbot. So, what's happening with this card is that it can deal up to 6 damage, but it is very vulnerable to being like, paying the body away or whatever. It does not come out on curve in the same way that Egg Napper does, right? Egg Napper comes in and deals 3 damage right away, and it's fine. Instead, this takes one of the damage from Egg Napper, like it increases it by 1 mana, but the extra damage it gets is in the form of a Death Rattle 1/1, not in the form of 1 extra attack stat. So it's a more awkward play on curve than Egg Napper. It is not better than Egg Napper on curve. But where it makes up for it, and why it actually ends up with a score above Egg Napper, is that it is magnetic. So imagine if your Egg Napper can turn into a deal 3 extra damage to a target, and then summon 3/1/1s. Like later on in the game, right? If you have it or whatever. That's pretty good. Or like deal 3 more damage of reach. And, if this minion gets destroyed, summon a bunch of 1/1s that can keep attacking the enemy in order to provide the reach. Oh, by the way, all the bodies, all 4 of the freaking bodies are mechs. So you can magnetic it even more. That's what this card does. Don't take it if you don't have mechs, but you're probably going to have some mechs. And if you have some mechs, especially if you have some other magnetic cards, it's both a great base and a user of mechs. Like, this is a mech card. In a mech deck, this is great. Like, no short of premium. I don't think Blizzard realizes this. Or Blizzard is thinking... I mean, Blizzard rates mechs pretty decently. We don't really have a problem with how they're rating mechs. I just don't think they see what a ridiculously, flexible card this is in the arena. And on curve, without, any of this mech stuff, it's totally a normal curve card. Right? 3/1, 1/1, 1/1, 1/1. Yeah. That's a good curve card. That's like Yeti level.
All right. Wow. Thank you for the impassioned speech for Replicating Menace.
I really like this card. It's great design.
Anyways, next card is a fairly boring one. Augmented Elec. It's a 106, which means it's properly bucketed. No real complaints about this one. 3 mana, 3/4 beast. Whenever you shuffle a card into the deck, shuffle in an extra copy. 99% of the time, this will not matter at all. So it's a 3 mana, 3/4 beast. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
You like 3 mana, 3/4s. I think that's all we have to say about it. Yeah. It's properly bucketed. You're gonna pick it sometimes.
Yep. This bucket, by the way, the 4th bucket is like the Yeti bucket. It also the top of the bucket is like Egg Napper Dragon Slayer. The bottom of the bucket is like Blood Knight and I don't know, some weird corridor creepers in here. But it's generally this middle bucket. Which brings you to these middling kind of cards that are totally fine to be in your deck, but you're not terribly excited about. So another properly bucketed card from Blizzard, Spring Rocket, 3 mana, 2/1 mech, Battlecry, deal 2 damage. I know what it's worth. It'd be really good if it was a 3 mana, 2/2, deal 2 damage, because then you're 1 mana off of being your Fireplume Phoenix, huh? But it's not. It's a 2/1, and so it's good, okay-ish, right? It's properly bucketed.
It's properly bucketed. There you go. Now the next card is a. Let's see. I see a difference between the. Anyways, I want to talk about Piloted Reaper.
Okay.
Because that's the one that is on the list. Now, I'm going to follow the list. Okay.
Go for it.
Piloted Reaper is a 4 mana, 4/3 mech with the Death Rattle. Summon a random minion from your hand that costs 2 or less.
Hey.
Yeah.
Balanced Piloted Shredder.
Basically, balanced Piloted Shredder. Exactly. So you can choose what comes out. So, no more Doomsayers.
So you can't choose what comes out. You basically play the other cards first.
Yeah, exactly. But this does take a card, right? That's the thing. You get tempo, sure, but it takes a card.
Probably even better tempo.
Yeah. And that's really the problem with it. And that's why we rate it as a 98, which it belongs in the fourth bucket. You know, we think it's a okay-ish card. It'll work in some decks, it won't work in others as well. But yeah, this is an homage to Shredder, a lot worse than Shredder though.
Yeah. Like I can see it in one bucket lower even, but yeah, it's around there. But yeah, it's not like the thing with this card. This is so awkward if your opponent doesn't kill it, because then you need to go and kill it, or else you can't play your 2-drop, and your 2-drops are like very flexibly played cards. Like I don't know. You won't see me drafting this card a lot.
Yeah.
What you will see me drafting a lot is War Gear. I love how before I really looked at this, I was like, oh, Max Magnetic, none of this is gonna work. And then I saw the offering rates, ran some maths, and now I'm like, you know what? This magnetic stuff, not so bad actually in the arena. They put the numbers out pretty well. 5 mana 5/5 mech, that's War Gear. It has magnetic. 5 mana 5/5s are not great, but totally serviceable. You add magnetic to that, and it doesn't get that much better. So the problem with this is that you need a very small mech for the buff to really be worth it, because otherwise you're sacrificing a 5/5 body, which is pretty sizable, to get the buff. Like, not all buffs are created equal. If you're buffing something +2/+2, that's like very, very useful no matter what. If you're buffing something +5/+5, you need the right target. You need the right board state so you can make a proper kill when you buff it. Otherwise, you'd really rather just get a 5/5. The way to play this card is very often to play it as a body, even if you do have a mech that you can buff. And that's something that I think will keep this card from going up higher. Like, it's a properly bucketed card right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard sees the win rates and moves it down. Because I think a lot of people will misplay it by fusing it with other mechs when they really don't have to and they shouldn't. If the other mech has initiative, that's obviously a lot better, but if you're just playing it out later on, like, make it stand by itself. Don't make like a giant fused thing for no good reason, right? That's the reason why whatever that Warlock card is, the 3 mana 3/3 that eats the stuff next to you and gets you the stats, that's why that card is not the best card. Because you don't want to like consolidate bodies in this game, usually.
Yep. But the score that we have means that it's properly bucketed.
Properly bucketed, yeah.
You're going to see it in this bucket, and whenever you're faced with a choice, you're going to pick it a decent amount of times. All right. So now we come to the cards that are a little bit questionable. And I would say we start to disagree slightly with
significantly.
Significantly.
These are all cards that we think should be in the 6th bucket at best. It is the 4th bucket. So, yeah.
The first one is the best out of these, but it is Loose Specimen, which is a 5 mana 6/6 beast with Battlecry, deal 6 damage, randomly split among other.
Oh, is that what he does? He spits on everybody?
He spits on them.
And they're like, oh, I'm dead now.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. I don't know, maybe I haven't seen the animation. Maybe that's exactly how it works. That'd be pretty cool. I think if you play the arena, you can see why this card, this card's drawback is fairly significant. If you don't have anything on board, sure, it's a 5 mana 6/6. But if you have anything on board that you don't want to trade away, then yeah, it's pretty terrible. Dealing 6 damage only among your minions is really, really bad.
Dealing 6 damage is basically unplayable. It basically reads, if you have a minion on the board, you can't play this minion.
Yep.
Yes, there are egg synergies, but, there's a lot of things that give egg synergies. So, yeah. And the other thing is, like, by the time you get to 5 mana, getting that extra stat to be a 5 mana 6/6 is not that important. This is not like a 2 mana, like, 3/3 or a 3 mana 4/4. Or a 1 mana 2/2 even.
Yep.
Okay. More underbucketed cards. We've talked about this before in the very first video. It's Electro Right. 3 mana 3/3 Battlecry. If you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, gain +1/+1. That's not going to happen that often. The 12.0 offering odds are in. We've done the math. The algorithm knows what's happening, and it's very clearly saying this is not going to be a 3 mana 4/4 that often. And by not that often, I mean like less than 10% of the time. If you play it on turn 3. And later on, playing a 3 mana 4/4 off curve is not the best thing ever. And so altogether, it's just kind of a meh card. Fourth bucket, a little too high.
Yep. All right. Now we have Toxicologist, which is a 2-mana 2/2 battle cry. Give your weapon +1 attack. So good for classes that have no weapons. So if you guys are not aware, Toxicologist does not change. It doesn't change buckets, just like Hench Clan Thug does not change buckets. So essentially, you could be a mage and you could see Toxicologist within the fourth bucket. And that is why Toxicologist should not be in the fourth bucket, for a lot of the classes. If you're a priest or a mage and you see Toxicologist, you're just like, okay, well, this is trash. You will not pick it. You cannot pick it because all you're doing is picking a 2-mana 2/2. That's it.
So, the thing with the Toxicologist is that the ability is so meh compared to the body that even in classes with weapons like Shaman and Paladin, for example, it's not deserving of a fourth bucket. Like, you wouldn't even take this card in the fourth bucket in those classes.
Yeah,
only in the
even ones
warrior.
that have weapons sometimes.
Yeah, only in like warrior and rogue would you take it in the fourth bucket. Like warrior, it's a pretty good fourth bucket card. Like it makes the cut. You'll take it if you have a weapon heavy deck, and warriors need 2-drops. Like fine. If you're a rogue, you don't really need 2-drops. It's pretty good tempo, but even that's like it gets a little iffy. And the score is going to rise a little bit from here. We have a bug that we know right now going on with Rogue and adding weapon attack on curve. So that's slightly problematic right now. But in the end, it's not going to be a huge difference. You're not going to take this in any class besides Rogue and War. Is kind of how it comes down to. So. The problem with these is that I don't know if this is actually going to be moved down a bucket, because people in other classes may just not take this card, and then it's only taken in like Rogue and Warrior, and then its win rates are fine. So who knows? It just comes down to the point where you were talking about, right? Like Blizzard really should split up the neutrals. They probably don't have the technology for it right now, but it really makes for weird things in the arena.
Yeah, but then there's a ton of moving pieces, right? It does make it very, like once you start down that path, and they can just do it for a few cards right now, because like something like Toxicologist, that's clearly just, you cannot put it in the same bucket for non-weapon classes versus weapon classes, right? But that's how it is right now. So if you are a non-weapon class, this is a never take. Never ever take.
All right. EMP Operative is the last one that is in the never take category. We talked about it before in the first video. It's a 5-mana 3/3 battlecry, destroy a mech. That's very expensive to destroy a mech. Mechs really aren't that big. You're going to see a fair amount of mechs. I'm not saying if you take this card, you're not going to eat a mech. You'll eat a mech. You'll almost certainly eat a mech. It does not make this a good card.
Eventually. So here's, I think, the way that people need to think about it. And it's the same thing that sort of any kind of high risk, high reward kind of card, like Big Game Hunter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that people should think about Big Game Hunter and what really differentiates it from like a Dragon Slayer, right? It's really, remember, when we create these scores, we're thinking of, okay, you are an infinite player and you want to keep on being an infinite player. And what helps out with that? Winning in one fell swoop in like a huge fashion, right? Like it doesn't help you that much. Like it's not about like sort of the amount that you win, right? You kill off their 7/7 mech and you just win. What you want to do is win consistently through, all of your small advantages that you've accrued through the draft, through playing, through making better decisions. What EMP Operative does, and this is something that people catch on to way too much, they remember the times that EMP Operative hits, and it will hit sometimes. It's not, when we say it's a bad card, people will be like, but I've hit on it so many times.
Doesn't matter. You can hit on this on a 4/4 mech every single game, but if you had to hold it in your hand for even 3 turns to do that, then it just becomes like just worthy of a fourth bucket. And that's if you can kill a 4/4 mech every single time this is in your hand for 3 turns. That's not going to happen.
And
Like,
it's
I
not gonna,
don't.
and you're not going to.
Do you
hit
really
a
think
full
that's gonna
court.
happen? Like, you probably don't think that's gonna happen. Like,
No,
if you really
'cause-
think about how often mechs are good, like your opponent has 3 to 4 mechs in their deck on average. You
right.
have
And
you have 3 to
also,
4 turns to see one of their mechs. That has to be at least a 4/4. That's not gonna happen.
people systematically underrate the cost of holding onto a card because you keep on holding onto it for value.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Black Knight, Big Game Hunter, EMP Operative. They remember when eventually they get it. After so many turns, they're able to play it. But up until then, you are playing down a card
Mhm.
essentially because you're saying, no, this is not a card that I can play right now. There is a cost to that. So, this kind of cost, people consistently, it's like these hidden costs that people just don't factor in as well. And then whenever they do see the payoff, they systematically overrate the payoff. And even when it does pay off sometimes, on average, the amount of times in which this is a dead card will lose you, it'll lose you so much tempo and in effect lose you so much games as
Mhm.
well, that is why the score is what it is.
So
So
this is also like I'm gonna bring back Death Knights to this conversation because this is exactly what happened with Death Knights. Whenever people play a Death Knight, they're like, "Oh my god, I lose," and it's like, yeah, but you don't see the times in which you beat the guy because he had like a 9 mana card that's like unplayable half the time, right? And like, how do
right.
you beat a Death Knight? Go a little faster. It's very easy. Like, this is why we come out and we're like, yeah, we rock above a 75% win rate over Death Knights. That's higher than our regular win rates. And people are like, what? And we're like, yeah, because we play generally a little bit more aggressive, and like we don't freak out when they play the Death Knight. Like we recognize we still have 3 turns to kill them, and we do it. And that's the only Death Knights that we see. So then Blizzard bans Death Knights, and we're like, all right, well, we're like the most problematic cards in the arena, but like I guess they feel very bad to lose to. It's the same thing. These are going to feel bad to lose to. You're going to lose to these, but they're not good cards. And even within Blizzard, they're not being consistent. Big Game Hunters in the 6th bucket. This is in the 4th bucket. Are there more mechs than minions with 7 attack or more? Not that many more mechs. There's like a couple more mechs, but they're gonna be smaller on average.
Right. And also, you think of when you do hit with a BGH, you hit
Yeah,
with the BGH.
yeah. You
right?
actually get that swing,
you
game
you
winning.
get that game winning swing. With this, a lot of people also be like, dude, I hit so consistently with the operative. It's like, what are you getting? A mecha root?
No, you're getting one of the 1/1s that freaking replicating menace is going through. Like,
Right,
or you're killing
exactly.
like a giggling inventor, a Noiltron, which is like fair value and all, but like if you
Right.
didn't have to hold it in your hand, right? So if like they play a giggling inventor and then you play an EMP operative and kill one of their things, yeah, it's worth about the 4th bucket. But that's like it hitting.
Yeah. So once again, look, also people will be drafting more mechs at the beginning, but this is a card in which, because of the massive amount of swings and because of the amount that it requires you to hold in your hand, uh, it severely lowers the score because you, as a good player, should not count on things like EMP Operative. Some
Okay.
cards are so good that you can do it,
Yeah.
like Dragon Slayer, but for EMP Operative, you should not.
Yeah. Okay. We spent enough time on this card. Let's move on. We got a
All right, yeah, yeah.
whole 5th bucket to do.
Oh my god. Okay, let's do
5th
it.
bucket. Let's rip through them. First one, Skaterbot. This is the best one in the set. 138, like in the set of five bucket cards, not in the entire set. And I mean, there's other cards. Violet Worm is here in the 5th bucket. Stubborn Gastropod's in the 5th bucket. There's some really good cards in the 5th bucket. It's not like Skaterbot is like breaking any kind of like rules, but in the bottom of bucket of the 5th bucket, it is by far the highest one. Skaterbot's a 1 mana 1/1 magnetic rush. It gives your mech a rush, and it also gives it +1/+1 for just 1 mana. And it flexibly is a ping when you need it, if you need it before that, right?
Yep.
Like, super flexible card. If you know how to use it, you're gonna get value out of it. I like, for how good it is, I'm not fully confident it'll actually ever be moved up the buckets, just because it's kind of an expert card. Like, you kind of have a lot of options with it. Like, a lot of these magnetic cards are, and of course, you do have to have a deck for it too. You do have to have some mechs, right, that you would actually want to charge out. So, like, I take it every time if you have a
It's
deck
good.
with even a normal amount of mechs. If you have a deck with no mechs, obviously, like, don't. But
Yep.
No.
So once again, Skaterbot, under-bucketed card. You should seriously consider taking it if you see it. Good way to extract value. All right.
Omega Defender, 4 mana, 2/4 taunt, battlecry. If you have 10 mana crystals, gain +10 attack. We're not even going to go over this anymore. We've beat this dead horse so often. It's an Omega card, right? It's going to be good at 10 mana. It's also a decent curve card if you need to play it as there. Like, Blizzard's under bucketing these cards. Not terribly so, but definitely by like a couple of buckets at least.
Right.
Like, don't think of these as tier 1 cards, but they're good tier 2, tier 3 cards. They're not 5th bucket cards.
Right. So this is another one which you can extract some value if you take this card. Okay. Now we're gonna go to cards that we think are pretty fairly bucketed. Not like the scores are within what you would expect from the 5th bucket. We have Steel Rager, which I know a lot of people will like just because Rager. 4 mana, 5/1 mech with Rush. It's a neutral removal. That's pretty good, This is something in which you can put sort of a magnetic thing on here as well to make it rush harder, I guess. But otherwise, 4 mana to deal 5 damage, really good. So yeah, you're gonna take this a decent amount.
Okay. It's 4 mana, 5 damage, right? It's good. But it's like, I think people may think it's better than it is. But you really you can't play it as a 4-drop. It's a really terrible 4-drop. And that's what lowers a lot of its value. Like, it's a gimped fireball that has this like mech thing. And so it is where it is. Kaboombot is next. 3 mana, 2/2. Death Rattle, deal 4 damage to a random enemy minion. This does not have magnetic. It's like the upgraded version of Volatile Elemental, but it's a mech. It's a 3-drop instead of a 2-drop. It's 2/2 instead of 1/1. It deals 4 damage instead of 3 damage. It is where it is, right? It's 100 rated, about where 5th bucket cards are. It's fine. Provides a mech base.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of a card in which, if the board state is right, you can extract a huge amount of value from it, or you can just sort of whiff on it completely, right? So that's sort of where it's at. You're picking a decent amount, appropriately bucketed. Okay, next is Seaphorium Bomber, which we have at a 95, so still appropriately bucketed for the 5th bucket. 5 mana, 5/5 Battlecry. Shuffle bomb into your opponent's deck. When drawn, it explodes for 5 damage. It's basically just a 5 mana, 5/5. That's essentially it, which is totally acceptable. And you have a chance that your opponent will take 5 damage sometime in the future.
Yep. Next one is Coppertail Imposter. Coppertail Imposter, 4 mana, 4/4. Battlecry, gain stealthy on your next turn. Totally normal card until your next turn. Totally normal card. It's a mech. 4/4s aren't great for 4 mana, but it stealths the turn. That's something. Not much to say.
Not much to say. We've seen a similar thing with Stranglethorn Tiger, but Tiger can permanently stealth.
Oh yeah, right? that's a big difference.
It is a big difference. But then this has the mech tag, so you can buff it. It's a fine card to take it. And then we have Upgradable Framebot, a card that I talked about in the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Mainly is just like, this card by itself isn't that great, but it is an early mech. And this is before I saw Mecharoo, right?
Yeah.
I'm just like, mechs, snowballing mechs can be a real thing. Mostly just because of how annoying this thing is to kill. And Mecharoo is really annoying to kill as well. So yeah, this is properly bucketed in the 5th bucket. Feel free to take it if you need early game, if you need mechs. Really good to get a buff on this, right? It's very flavorful in that way. Like, this is sort of the perfect frame to put a buff onto.
Yep. You can see it's rated a little bit low for this, like an 87. That's because the 1/5 really doesn't match up terribly well against other like 2-drops and stuff. It really is used for its like mech body that can be buffed. So you gotta have the deck. You gotta have the magnetic cards. All right. Cloak Scale Chemist is next. 2 mana, 1/2, Stealth, Divine Shield. This would be way better if it was a 2/1. But we'll have to deal with it as a 1/2. Which means, again, doesn't trade very well with any 2-drops. Doesn't trade with 3-drops at all. Is not a mech. So it is not going to provide a body to buff stuff on. It's kind of a passable 2-drop. Like, if you actually, like, absolutely need it. But I don't know what you're, like, doing with this guy. Like, yeah, it can't be removed. You can buff it. There are certain cards that combo with it. It probably shouldn't be this high. Like, it should probably be 1 bucket lower. I don't know who's getting so much use out of it that it'll stay here. I'm pretty sure it's going to move down a bucket. But, like, I wouldn't take this card if it were offered to me unless I absolutely needed a 2-drop. But hey, it's at least a 2-drop, right? If you absolutely need a 2-drop, this is a 2-drop.
Yep, definitely. So this is kind of okay in the 5th bucket, but like Adulta says, it is definitely one of the lowest rated cards within the 5th bucket.
So that's it for the neutrals. As you see, it's a lot of mechs, and it's a lot of mech buffy stuff. And especially among these good cards, and the slightly underrated ones are all mechy, and you're going to get some good... Like, especially if you start off with an early pick and it's like a magnetic card, whether neutral or a class card, you're like, all right, I can do this. I can make a mech deck. Like, I think it's very well balanced in the arena right now. The way they've done mechs and the amount of cards that are out there with mechs. Like, it's not so much that it's like everyone's a mech deck, but it's very much of I can kind of go for a mech deck and make. That control was done very well. Gonna be it's not gonna be an interesting set in the sense that any of these cards are going to do things that are like, oh my god, this is no longer Hearthstone Arena. This is now like Poisonous Land or Primordial Drake Land, or we're gonna be playing the Portal meta, right? Like whatever, like Steed meta, Lich King meta, all those. That's not gonna happen. But they're very interesting variants on like existing on the board arena mechanic. Like I said, this is why I am okay with this Weaponized Pinata. This is the set for it. The rest of the cards are the opposite of crazy. The rest of the cards are like cards I like. So, this is the set to put a card like this in. Whereas you put this in a crazier set, and it's like, what do you do?
Yep. So once again, let's quickly go over the cards to avoid and the cards to take out of these buckets, right? So the cards you should be taking or seriously consider taking: Giggling Inventor, Replicating Menace, Skaterbot, Omega Defender, right? Remember those. Whenever you see those, you should be thinking, hey, these are the value cards right here. And whenever you see cards like Toxicologist, Moose Specimen, Electrorite, and EMP Operative, you should think, there might be a role here. For example, Toxicologist and Rogue.
For example, to click the other cards.
Yeah, but those are cards in which you see them, you should think, okay, these are really over-bucketed cards, and I should think heavily and really examine my deck before I just click on one of these cards.
That's it from us for the second part of the buckets. We're going to move on to the next set to talk about the last 2 buckets, which is the 6th and 7th bucket. And they are the buckets that actually have an offering rate penalty to it. So you will see those cards less. And some of them are very under-bucketed cards. They're actually quite good. So we'll dig on to that. So keep watching, and we'll keep reviewing these cards and telling you how they're rated. Shout out again to everyone watching right now live on Twitch. Shout out to everyone listening on the podcast, and we're watching this on a VOD. You can follow us on Twitter at Adwicta or like Merps. Merps4248, right? Is that your Twitter handle?
Yes.
And we tweet out stuff about our lives and about Hearthstone and about other projects. You could also find our YouTube content where we put up every single 12 and or 11 win run that we get. So now you never know whether we're going to make it or not. And we actually have quite a striking number of 11 win runs, I feel like, compared to what usually happens. So it's always exciting, and they're all edited too, so you can watch the backlog of those and see how we get there. We are so that's a couple plugs, and we'll see you on the next neutral episode.
See you guys in the next segment.